Hi, my name is Terry Hayes, but I go by Scooter, and my sport is para-fencing, and I've been paralyzed for 8 years. I'm a full-time wheelchair user. I was very active. I love to ride my pink bike everywhere. My wife and I backpacked to the bottom of the Grand Canyon, which was quite the adventure. I had a sense because I was having a problem with my balance. If I looked up, I fell flat on my back. I became very unstable. I had to hold on to Frida's arm to walk anywhere. And at that point, I decided I better go to the doctor and find out what was going on, and that's when I got my diagnosis. It was kind of a gradual decline until that was it, and so I realized something was going on, and so I think I was a little prepared for it when I became a full-time wheelchair user. I kind of knew I was headed in that direction. I fenced all 3 weapons, foil, épée, and saber. And I got into wheelchair fencing because I went to a camp for women in wheelchairs, sports camp, and this was after I hadn't been paralyzed very long. And we did all kind of activities. We did riding adaptive bikes and swimming and wheelchair tennis and aerial yoga and horseback riding and all kind of stuff. So I just went online and Googled wheelchair sports, and I saw Lauren DeLuca from the US at the Rio Paralympic Games, and she was fencing in a wheelchair, and it really caught my eye. It was extremely fast. It's athletic, and you get to stab people and you don't get in trouble for it. Went back online and found a face group and asked some questions about who do you talk to if you want to learn how to fence and you use a wheelchair. So in a roundabout way, it took a while, I found Jenny Boydston from USA Fencing, who was in charge of the para-fencing team, and I called her and I said, I want to learn how to fence. So she asked me all about my disability, and she said, I think you would qualify. So she said, find a coach and call me back. So I found a local club not too far from us, and I called and said I was interested in beginner lessons. And the man I talked to was Charlie, and he was the head coach and the owner of the club. And he said, well, I have a class starting tomorrow at 6:30 if you want to come for beginner lessons. I said, okay, that sounds good. I said, but I have to tell you, I don't know how to fence. And he said, well, I have to tell you, I don't know how to coach an athlete in a wheelchair. I've never fenced and you've never coached anyone in a wheelchair. And he said, so I think this is going to work out perfect. And it did. He took me on as a student, and he coached me all the way through the 2020 Paralympic Games. It was a goal for my saber coach before it was a goal for me, because it was nowhere in the realm of reality that I could compete at that high of a level. And so an international World Cup was coming up, and he said, just go and try it. I said, I'm going to get slaughtered. And he said, well, you might, but it's a learning experience, so just go and try. So I got with our team manager and found out that I could go with the US team, and at this time I was on the national team. So I went and I got slaughtered, but I realized that I think maybe I could do the international circuit with more training and practice. You're on your national team, and then you're on, you go out on the World Cup circuit and you compete around the world. So for 2 years, I was either competing in a foreign country, then the next month I would compete nationally in the US, then the next month back to a foreign country. So we did that for 2 years. And then when qualifying stops, they add up all your points, which you can track as you go. And then they'll say, from this zone, these are the athletes that have been selected, but you have to wait till you get an email from your national governing body, which was USA Fencing, to tell you, congratulations, you've been accepted and you have a slot to go to the Paralympics. We got there at 2 o'clock in the morning because we had like an 18-hour flight. And then when we got to the airport, we had 6 hours quarantine in the Tokyo airport where we had 2 COVID tests. It was really different that year because of COVID. You had to wear a mask everywhere. And then when we fenced, we had to wear a regular COVID mask underneath our fencing mask, which made it extremely hot and hard to breathe. But when we finally got to the village at 2 a.m., there were all kind of volunteers to meet us, and we went up to our tower, which is where all the American athletes were at. Very humbling, because very few people get to do it, and I know it was a total privilege that I was there. And it was an honor to represent my country. When I went to the Paralympic Games and they rolled us out on the huge stage where we were going to compete, they would say your country and your name. They would say, representing the United States of America, Terry Hayes. And the first time they said it, I just busted out in tears crying. I was just so overwhelmed with emotion that they said I was representing my whole country. It just was totally overwhelming to me. I could not let the whole magnitude of the games come into my consciousness, because I think it would have just stopped me cold. It was just too big of a concept. I think the proudest moment when opening ceremonies, because I had visualized myself coming through that tunnel to chants of USA, USA for years. To actually roll out into that huge stadium, coming through the tunnel, and all the athletes in the tunnel were screaming USA, USA. And when we came out and saw this whole huge stadium, it just kind of blew my mind that I was there, and I had my opening ceremonies uniform on that said US Paralympic Team. I cried again. It was just very overwhelming for me. Stick to it. Don't give up, because at first it's going to be incredibly hard, especially if it's a sport you've never done before. And for most young athletes with disabilities, they're just learning a new sport. So it's hard at first. Don't give up. Just keep moving forward, and in the end, you're going to reach your goal. Actually, I think it's a good definition of myself, because I feel totally unstoppable no matter what it is. Now, it doesn't mean I haven't fallen out of my wheelchair. It doesn't mean I haven't gotten hurt. It doesn't mean everything was super smooth. It just means if something stops me, I back up, regroup, and move forward.